Hades is a dungeon crawler hack and slash roguelike game where you play as Zagreus, immortal son of Hades, on his quest to escape from the underworld. But the question we have is Hades worth your money and time? I would say if you like a bit of challenge with fast and tight combat, then Hades is the game for you. This game was awarded Game of the Year by a lot of critics, which tells you a lot about the game. Hades has amazing hand-drawn artwork with fast-paced combat and a soundtrack that slaps. There are no disclaimers in this video since I won't be talking about any major spoilers in the game. There is an ending and credits that you can get, but only after beating this game 10 times, which I haven't gotten yet because I've only beaten this game once, which took me 25 attempts. First, let's talk about what type of game Hades is. Hades is a roguelike game which is a subgenre of role-playing games traditionally characterized by a dungeon crawl through procedurally generated levels, turn-based gameplay, grid-based movement, and permanent death. Technically, Hades is a roguelite, which is the same as roguelikes, but it just doesn't have all of the elements of a true roguelike. But the differences doesn't really matter, so you can just say roguelike and people would get what type of game it is. There's no such thing as perfect, because in the end, everything will come down to personal preferences. But if you were to ask me which game is the most polished game I've ever played, the first game that comes to my mind is Hades. This game is super polished. The controls feel smooth, the combat is satisfying, the boss fights were tough and thrilling, and the levels were visually stunning. And the voice acting and the dialogue were really good. It feels crazy to me how every time you die, there are always new dialogues for characters you've spoken to before. The characters in this game is the best part in my opinion. Their reaction to different scenarios in the game gives you the feeling of being immersed in the world of Greek mythology. You will definitely die a lot in this game, but that's okay, because every time you die, you will go back to the start and you unlock new dialogue options and you can upgrade your stats, which will help you in your next escape attempt. Like other roguelikes with permadeath, the only thing you can take on your next runs is knowledge, which is very important in Hades. You can't brute force your way through this game. You will need to learn and improve in order to succeed. Hades is a hard game, especially for people who aren't familiar to this genre. So here are some tips that can help you on your playthrough. First is to focus more on dodging instead of dealing damage. Once you learn the enemy's attack patterns, you will know when you would need to dash away, and you will also know when you can attack. Secondly, you should always prioritize Daedalus hammers, which will give you a strong upgrade for your weapon. Third, if you have the health points to spare, you should always go into these Chaos Gates. It will give you a restriction for an X amount of encounters, and if you survive those encounters, you will also get a strong upgrade. Fourth, there are keepsakes from gods in the game which you can use to guarantee a god's boon. I always like starting my runs with an Athena boon so I can deflect enemy attacks, and even launch enemy projectiles back to them to deal more damage. And lastly, use the weapon that gives you bonus darkness, because you can use these darkness to get permanent buffs, such as extra lives, heals whenever you go into a new area, and more. Knowledge in this game is very important, so you need to learn these mechanics, which will make your runs in this game so much easier. I would also recommend watching YouTube videos on builds that you can work towards. And you can also watch tips for boss fights to make your runs enjoyable instead of frustrating. Dying in this game can be frustrating, especially if you died because of a wrong decision. Probably should have been greedy. Probably should have dodged. Probably. But games are a lot like life, you know? Shit happens, you just need to deal with it. So you should just move on and try to improve so that you can one day be triumphant, which will feel super satisfying.
That thing. That's the sun.
Hades is one of the best games in the roguelike genre and is definitely worth its price tag. This game also has more content for you to enjoy even after beating the game once. There's the Pact of Punishment, relationships, decorations, the ending credit after beating the game 10 times, and an epilogue that you can get. If you want to complete all of these, it would take you about 90 to 100 hours. I have also never encountered any bugs on my almost 14 hours of playing this game, so if you are interested in this game, there's really no reason that I can think of for you to not buy it. And with all that being said, that's all for this video. Much love, and thanks for watching.